from the DVD shelf.
Welcome to the DVD Shelf Movie Reviews, where movies are celebrated, not incinerated. There's something odd about Charlie Brewster's new next-door neighbor. With glimpses of strange behavior and strange furniture, Charlie's growing suspicions cause his imagination to run wild. Is there something really supernatural going on with the new neighbor? Or has Charlie Brewster been watching one too many monster movies? Either way, tonight is Fright Night. I'm your host David Rose, and as you can see, I've made my way back down to the DVD Vault of Horrors because tonight, we'll be talking about vampires. No. Silly. Real vampires, not the little kids that mope around and sparkle. These. Yeah. Now in recent years, vampires have been getting a bad rap. Classic vampire lore and imagery is out, and bland, cliched teenage melodrama is in. You could say the times have drastically changed because, for some reason, today's audiences are swept away by dull female role models with self-esteem issues who can't superficially choose which effeminate monster she wants to, make emotionless and nauseated faces at. In this episode, I'll be looking at the original Fright Night, a fun horror adventure film from the mid-'80s that revels in iconic vampire legends while paying homage to good old-fashioned monster movies in general. Then I'll touch on Fright Night Part II, the 1989 sequel that's strangely hard to find, and we'll see if it's even worth looking for. After that, I'll take a look at the 2011 3D remake of Fright Night, starring Colin, Farrell, and Anton Yelchin, and see how it stands up to the original. And finally, just like in every episode, I'll be giving the Fright Night DVD my final recommendation using this rating scale, which ranges from 1 disc, being just downloaded, all the way to 5 discs, being a must-own movie. So now, we've got a lot of ground to cover today, so let's get started. Welcome to Fright Night. Directed by Tom Holland and starring Chris Sarandon, William Ragsdale, Amanda Bearse, Stephen Jeffries, and Roddy McDowall. It was released theatrically from Columbia Pictures on August 2nd, 1985, the DVD was released on September 7th, 1999, and the online exclusive limited edition Blu-ray was released on December 13th, 2011. Fright Night's writer and director Tom Holland began his career in show business by acting in numerous bit parts on television shows during the 60s and 70s. A lifelong movie lover, Holland always knew he wanted to be a director, but he figured taking small acting jobs would help get his foot in the door. And the strategy began to work as he transitioned to screenwriting in the late 70s and early 80s. Holland wrote several screenplays for early 80s cult favorites such as Cloak and Dagger, The Beast Within, and Class of 1984. But probably his most recognizable screenwriting gig was in 1983 for Psycho 2, the first of 3 sequels to the original Alfred Hitchcock masterpiece. In 1985, Tom Holland wrote the screenplay for Fright Night, which was also his very first feature film as a director. Welcome to Fright Night, the late-night horror movie scare-a-thon hosted by aging film actor Peter Vincent. Formerly one of the horror genre's biggest icons, Vincent was famous for playing a vampire killer in a string of classic B-grade monster movies, and one of Peter Vincent's biggest fans is high school student Charlie Brewster, who always stays up late to catch Fright Night. Following a makeout session with his girlfriend Amy, Charlie watches from his bedroom window as a couple of men carry what looks to be a coffin into the newly bought house next door.
Charlie, I'm ready.
Amy, you're not gonna believe this. There are 2 guys out in the yard, and I think they're carrying a coffin.
We have pledged ourselves to evil.
Sure. And they're on the moors, right?
Amy, I'm serious.
And in true Rear Window fashion, Charlie grows more suspicious of his next-door neighbor as he catches more strange behavior coming from the house, leaving it up to his imagination to fill in the gaps. Distracted by these growing suspicions, he becomes more distant from Amy and his borderline psychotic best friend, Evil Ed Thompson.
Charlie?
Oh, you're so cool, Brewster. I can't stand it.
Everything changes, however, when Charlie's mother invites the new neighbor, Jerry Dandridge, into their house where Charlie finally meets him face to face.
Hello, Charlie. Charlie, don't be rude. Shake hands.
What's he doing here?
I invited him over for a drink.
What?
I invited him over. Why?
What's the matter, Charlie? Afraid I'd never come over without being invited first? Of course, now that I've been made welcome, I'll probably drop by quite a bit. In fact, anytime I feel like it.
Charlie can easily see through Jerry's charm and friendly demeanor, which leads to a late-night confrontation between Charlie and Jerry, where Jerry reveals his true self and threatens Charlie to stop snooping around. Now the stakes have been raised as Charlie is left with no one believing him, so he seeks help from his idol, Peter Vincent, the quote-unquote great vampire killer.
I believe in vampires.
That's nice. If only there'd been a few more of you, perhaps my ratings would have been higher.
In fact, I have one living next door to me. Would you help me kill him?
Pardon me.
He's a vampire.
If this is your idea of a joke, I am not amused.
Mr. Vincent, I am not joking. I'm deadly serious.
But when Vincent gives Charlie the cold shoulder, Amy and Evil Ed go and offer Vincent money to help Charlie get through this vampire episode.
Please, Mr. Vincent.
I'm afraid not. You see, Hollywood beckons. I have just been offered a starring role in a major film. I have even had to quit Fright Night. And so you see...
I'll give you money.
How much?
I have a $500 savings bond.
I'll take it.
With Charlie's girlfriend and best friend now caught in the middle, does the has-been actor have what it takes to help Charlie defeat this creature of the night? You'll just have to watch and see.
Oh, really?
When Fright Night was released in the mid-80s, it was quite a decent hit, becoming the second highest grossing horror film of 1985, only being beat by the first sequel in the wildly successful Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. Several years later, the film spawned an almost 2-year-long run of monthly comic books published by the now-defunct Now Comics. Audiences love Fright Night's unique genre mashing of horror, adventure, and comedy that was in the same vein as earlier 80s horror hits such as The Evil Dead and An American Werewolf in London. The movie doesn't take itself too seriously for being a horror film, but it can be pretty scary when it's trying to be, and the film has quite a few memorable sequences that have since become iconic over the years, which has made this an ever-growing cult favorite. I just think too that fans of old horror movies look at a film like Fright Night and appreciate how it plays with traditional horror tropes, and I'd say that this is especially relevant today, since now the idea of a vampire has been reduced down to this, and watching the original Fright Night makes people nostalgic for a time when vampires were actually interesting and terrifying. And what's great about the character of Jerry Dandridge is the fact that it works within the realm of traditional vampire legends, where he's a charming womanizer on the surface, and it isn't until later that he reveals the beast within. But the only beast within here is a lanky priss that needs to eat a friggin' sandwich. On top of all the classic vampire ideas Fright Night brings us, we have Roddy McDowall turning in a wonderful performance as actor Peter Vincent. McDowall, probably most famous for his role as Cornelius in the original 1968 version of Planet of the Apes, is obviously having great fun playing Vincent. At first, Vincent is naturally skeptical that vampires truly exist, but once he finds out that they do, his true colors begin to show. In Charlie's eyes, Vincent instantly goes from the silver screen's greatest vampire slayer to simply a cowardly actor.
You're Peter Vincent, the great vampire killer.
That is a character in a movie! That isn't even my real name. I'm terrified. I'm sorry, Charlie, but I am.
Then as you get to know the Peter Vincent character throughout the film, you're caught up in his transformation from cowardly actor to the heroic monster hunter you can't help but root for.
Peter Vincent, ready to do battle with the undead.
Peter, this is serious.
I'm serious here. Hold this. Go on.
And Roddy McDowall brings the perfect blend of grace and humor to help breathe life into the character of Peter Vincent. Peter Vincent is a mashup of classic horror movie actors and television personalities who would host late-night scary movie marathons. Now coincidentally, back in the 1970s, there existed a Los Angeles-based horror movie marathon host named Larry Vincent, whose on-screen persona, Seymour, would host a late-night scary movie marathon known as Fright Night. Now obviously you'd think Peter Vincent would be a direct takeoff on host Larry Vincent, but the character's name is actually a combination of the names of classic horror movie actors Peter Cushing and Vincent Price. Several years after Larry Vincent's death in 1975, his successor on the Los Angeles-based Fright Night Marathon was actress Cassandra Peterson, but she's probably more famous for her on-screen alter ego, Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. The other standout in Fright Night has to be Chris Sarandon, playing the vampire Jerry Dandridge. You believe every facet of his character, whether he's the suave womanizer, the hostile next-door neighbor, or the terrifying creature. Following Fright Night, Sarandon went from playing a vampire to playing a police detective in Tom Holland's 1988 hit horror film, Child's Play, the first in the acclaimed series of movies featuring the evil killer doll, Chucky. In 1993, Sarandon went on to portray the speaking voice for Jack Skellington in the animated classic Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas. When Jack would be talking, you'd be hearing Sarandon's voice.
Isn't that wonderful? It couldn't be more wonderful.
But you're the Pumpkin King.
Not anymore. And I feel so much better now.
But when Jack was singing, that was the voice of the film's composer and songwriter, Danny Elfman.
And since I am dead, I can take off my head to recite Shakespearean quotations. No animal nor man can scream like I can with the fury of my recitations.
While Tom Holland was directing Child's Play in 1988, a sequel for Fright Night was also in development. William Ragsdale returned as Charlie Brewster, who has spent 3 long years in therapy following his traumatic encounter with Jerry Dandridge. Charlie, now in college, believes that he's finally been cured and now looks back on the events from the first film as simply being some sort of paranoid delusion.
Jerry Dandridge was a serial murderer, cult worshiper, kidnapper. He abducted my girlfriend Amy and my friend Ed Thompson, and this triggered a defense mechanism in my brain which caused me to imagine he was a vampire.
And was Jerry Dandridge a vampire?
No, there's no such thing.
How do you know?
Because vampires don't exist.
Actress Amanda Bearse does not return as Charlie's girlfriend Amy, who had a fairly pivotal role in the first film. But since Amanda Bearse had since found great success on the popular sitcom Married with Children beginning in 1987, she was obviously a bit busy.
See, I told you it was him. I could see where you would think it was an orangutan. But I knew I recognized that bald spot when I spotted it from the freeway.
You know, Jefferson, good for you. You decided to take the Miller boy camping.
Now to me, Fright Night Part II is a criminally overlooked sequel. It straddles the goofy line a bit more than the original film, for instance the cross-dressing vampire on roller skates, but it's equally as fun, and it's more than just a simple retread of what we've seen already. Sure, Charlie has another vampire to fight, this time being Jerry Dandridge's sister Regine, who has hunted Charlie down to get revenge for what he did to her brother. Only this time Charlie has an encounter with her that causes him to start slowly turning into a vampire himself.
All natural ingredients. Made the tomato sauce fresh this morning. None of that canned crap. Freshly grated Parmigiano Romano. The leanest sausage in town.
Hey, you convinced me.
Bacon with no nitrites in it. Organic artichoke hearts. Oh, yeah. And my special secret ingredient. A whole bulb of garlic on each pizza.
Plus, Charlie doesn't have to work as hard this time to convince Peter Vincent that he is once again being threatened by vampires.
And do you mind if I borrow these?
Released in the US in the spring of 1989, Fright Night Part II was not received nearly as well as the original was, but I still think it's a fun sequel that does a fair job in continuing the story without having any real glaring continuity issues that many sequels seem to suffer from. I'd say it's worth checking out if you're a big enough fan of the original, but that's if you can actually get your hands on a copy. And good luck with that, by the way, since the DVD has been out of print for years, and you'd have to pay around $130 to get a copy on Amazon.com. You can, however, check it out by using alternative methods. YouTube. So, that'll bring us all the way to 2011 when the Fright Night remake was released. Now, when I first heard that they were doing a remake, I wondered, like I do with many remakes in recent years, why bother? What I did find intriguing was that it was being directed by Craig Gillespie, whose earlier film, Lars and the Real Girl, starring Ryan Gosling, I was a big fan of and I even feature in one of my earlier episodes. An unconventional choice to direct this type of movie, but I gave him the benefit of the doubt. Plus, I figured that in this Twilight-obsessed world we're sauntering through right now, I guess Fright Night is the kind of horror-comedy vampire movie that could be seen as an answer to all that stuff. But still, I didn't really see the point in remaking Fright Night, and saw it as just another cash grab based on the original now being a classic and having a recognizable title. There was just no good reason for this story to be updated for 2011. Okay, there might be a couple things. First off, in the original, Jerry has a live-in handyman / bodyguard of sorts who is also a supernatural being, and there was a slight hint of, well, let's just say, ambiguousness. Yeah, it was a different time. That character was not featured in the remake. Secondly, the idea of a hosted TV series that runs a block of horror movies late at night has slowly become more and more obsolete over the past 10 to 20 years due to easier access to horror movies on home video, DVD, and Blu-ray. There stopped being a reason for all-night movie marathons on TV for the most part, but it's a shame because it was about more than just the movies. The hosts would add their own touches and humor to the movies they would show, which has been famously spoofed in shows like Mystery Science Theater 3000. So, in this day and age where kids no longer really know about late-night movie marathons and horror hosts, what does the Fright Night remake do with the Peter Vincent character? Well, they make him a Las Vegas magician. Yeah, that's right. British actor and Doctor Who veteran David Tennant plays a much younger Peter Vincent, portraying him as a douchey, chauvinistic drunk of a magician who comes off as the love child of Chris Angel and Russell Brand.
You think I'm hanging out with Dracula and the Easter Bunny? Fuck off!
The guy is a prick from the first time we see him on screen, and admittedly, as much as I don't care for how this Peter Vincent is written, Tennant is fun to watch in the role. But he's no Roddy McDowall, who is able to bring a lot more likability and heart to such a cowardly character. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Now, the following will contain a few more spoilers than I usually like to give, but I'm doing this to basically let you all know why you should just stick with the original Fright Night and forget about the remake. People will just say to judge it as a movie on its own, but come on, when you remake a movie, you're just asking for it to be compared to its original. First off, we have Colin Farrell playing Jerry Dandridge. In this version, Dandridge is a much more animalistic murderer who has a secret room with separate little compartments where he keeps his victims until he's ready to feed. Granted, I'm okay with making him more of a beastly killer, but where's the seductive womanizing Dandridge from the original who's supposed to sucker the women into being kidnapped? I know when you have a remake, you want to have a bit of creative liberty with these established characters, but this is just one of the many examples of how the movie's alterations from the original only made it worse. Right when this Jerry shows up, he already has the shifty eyes, and there's really nothing interesting or likable about him. The original Jerry comes off as a really nice and charming guy at first when other people are around, making everyone think Charlie is the crazy one. There's just more of a complex personality and story that goes with the original Jerry, where there's nothing to Colin Farrell's version, except that he always looks like he's about ready to kill somebody. Next, we have Anton Yelchin as Charlie Brewster, which is probably the strongest aspect of the film. I actually like this Charlie quite a bit. He's a little different from the original, but what they did seems to work for the most part. He's basically a dorky kid at heart who's trying a bit too hard to shed that image and be the cool kid now that he's in high school, which causes a rift between him and his former best friend, Evil Ed. What I don't like about this version of Charlie is that there's nothing that alludes to him being obsessed with horror movies. Granted, that part of his personality wouldn't lend anything to the story in this one, since this Peter Vincent is a magician and not a horror actor, but Charlie being a massive horror movie fan was basically the entire point of the original, and added that extra self-referential element of the main character in a horror film being a fan of horror films. That being said, this Charlie Brewster is still perhaps the best part about the remake.
Gonna kill a vampire. Good for you.
Then we have Christopher Mintz-Plasse, famous for his supporting roles in Superbad, Role Models, and Kick-Ass. I like the guy and all, but him as Evil Ed is completely wrong. This Evil Ed is played up as a straight-up nerd, essentially the same character Christopher Mintz-Plasse played in Superbad and Role Models, where his nickname of Evil doesn't make as much sense as in the original. I always figured that Evil Ed got his nickname in the original because Stephen Jeffries played him up as being much more of a psycho with this morbid sense of humor.
Then he'll be able to suck his way through the entire town. Not that it would be much of a loss.
His performance is much more fleshed out and bizarrely funny in the original. He's part geek and part sociopath, which is only enhanced when Jerry turns him into a vampire towards the middle of the film.
Here's dinners in the oven.
The remade Evil Ed is turned into a vampire much earlier in the film, then he completely disappears for most of the movie. He shows up again later as a vampire, and the way he's depicted just doesn't work as well. It's a bit forced.
Oh, do I got a problem? You let him get to me, man. You let him turn me into this. Stay away, demon. Oh, is that an itchy-bitchy little sticky for me?
It's a crucifixion nail. It's lethal to you.
Oh, yeah. It's old school nice. Gonna have to get pretty close to use that thing now.
And now we come back to Peter Vincent, the douchebag magician. He headlines a gothic-themed magic show in Vegas which is called Fright Night. Now that's a bit of a stretch. Plus, Fright Night being the name of the stage act is such an afterthought that it really doesn't make much sense that it's also the name of the movie. But of course, this is a remake, so it has to be.
They also decide to tack on a little footnote of him being an expert on vampires where he owns an entire monster hunting arsenal. What Vegas magician doesn't? Which leads to this.
Don't you understand this yet? There will be no fighting. There will only be surviving. Maybe.
Really? You think if you live and we all die, you'll be able to get us out of your head?
No, I know I won't. I never could after the first time. So I told myself I made it up. I was a kid. Figured it was easier to believe in monsters.
Made what up?
The vampire that killed my parents. But not me.
Yeah, so Peter Vincent randomly decides that he'll go ahead and help Charlie destroy Jerry because he suddenly remembers,
oh wait, I've actually fought vampires off before.
I mean, I get that he's suppressing this haunting memory of watching a vampire kill his parents when he's laughing at Charlie in the beginning, but the way it plays out just makes it seem like they wanted to add some sort of revealing plot twist just for the hell of it. The original has McDowell's Vincent going through more of a graceful character arc without the need to introduce any new character details so late in the game.
Oh, but wait, there's more.
You got your mother's eyes. Your father's aim.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Peter Vincent's parents were killed by Jerry Dandridge when Vincent was a kid. Now, that's a plot contrivance worthy of being in a Star Wars prequel. I mean, it's such a lame attempt at giving Peter Vincent motivation for killing vampires, since the idea of him being a Vegas magician doesn't really give him any connection to killing vampires in the first place. Oh hey look, it's a cameo appearance by none other than the original Jerry Dandridge himself, Chris Sarandon. Oh, wait, he's dead. Whatever. You know, I just can't believe that almost every change from the original makes this more of a bland story, makes the characters more cliched and uninteresting, and makes it way less fun. It's been reviewed as being a horror comedy just like the original, but I just don't see that. It's not really funny, even when it's trying to be.
You read way too much Twilight.
That's fiction, okay? This is real. He's a real monster, and he's not brooding or lovesick or noble. He's the fucking shark from Jaws. He kills, he feeds, and he doesn't stop until everybody around him is dead. And I seriously am so angry you think I read Twilight.
Okay, that is a little funny. But still, for a movie that makes fun of Twilight, it sure as hell wants to look just like a Twilight movie with all the dark blue tinting and overtly grim atmosphere. I'm not saying the original is intended to be laugh-out-loud hilarious or anything, but there's just a lot more color and genuine personality to it that, in comparison, makes the new version just look like manufactured product.
You smell that?
Oh yeah, I smell it, and it smells like bullshit. Alright, time for a palate cleanser. So now, here we have the DVD for the original and one true Fright Night. And its only special feature is the theatrical trailer. Come on, give me something. The new Fright Night has all kinds of special stuff on it, but when it comes to the original, all we get is the trailer. But what are you gonna do? It's an older DVD, and the movie hasn't even been granted any kind of special edition. Back in December of 2011, the same day the remake was released on DVD, the website screenarchives.com released an online exclusive limited edition Blu-ray version of the original Fright Night. Unfortunately, only 3,000 copies were printed and sold out pretty quick, but still at $30, that was quite a bit to pay for just one movie with no special features. But now, with the Blu-ray out of print, you'd have to fork over a pretty penny to buy a copy online. Maybe someday we'll get Blu-rays of both Fright Night and Fright Night Part II. But until that day comes, enjoy the original Fright Night on DVD even if it does lack good special features. And with all the praise I've already given it, I'll have to rate Fright Night as a 4 out of 5 discs recommendation. Buy it if you run across it.
You're right. You're quite right.
Well, that'll about wrap up Fright Night. Thanks for joining me today for this look at an 80s horror classic, and I hope you'll now go out and watch some more scary movies from an era where filmmakers seem to have more love and genuine appreciation for the horror genre, and everything wasn't just rehashes and cash grabs. So I'll see you next time, but for now, this one's going back on the DVD shelf.